Hello, this is Dallin Cooper with County 10, here again with Patrick from Wind River Internet.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about Wi-Fi, not like where you get your Wi-Fi from, but the questions that we've been getting a lot have been like, how do I make my Wi-Fi better in my house, or why is my Wi-Fi slow? So today we're going to talk about that, and by we, I mostly mean Patrick, because I don't know how to make your Wi-Fi better, but I can ask questions, and hopefully Patrick can tell us how to get better Wi-Fi.
You know, it's actually pretty amazing that Wi-Fi even works at all.
That's true. It's like, what if we just put like all of human knowledge in the air, and then we just took it?
Yeah. So a lot of times, people's internet is slow, not necessarily because their internet connection to their house is slow, but because of the Wi-Fi in their house is slow. And why is your Wi-Fi house, or why is the Wi-Fi house, why is the Wi-Fi in your house slow?
There you go.
And why did Peter Piper pack up pickled peppers? And how many pickled peppers did he pick?
Enough to make his Wi-Fi fast.
Enough to make his Wi-Fi fast. So we can cover a few tips that are free. It don't cost you anything to get your internet working better, regardless of your service provider. Of course, if you got Wind River Internet, I'll touch on a few things that you can do with our services to help improve it. But yeah, most of these things will just work for anybody. So placement is like the biggest one. The way that Wi-Fi works is you want to be as close to it as you can, and that you get a better Wi-Fi signal. It's pretty straightforward, but a lot of times, like I know a lot of people want to have the strongest Wi-Fi signal in their living room, because that's where they'll spend most of their time, on the couch or using it for their TV. And that's fine. You can place it in the living room, and it actually works pretty good for like 90% of the people there. The catch is, if you put it in your entertainment center, you want to make sure that it is not being blocked by anything that's metal or other electronic devices, because they'll cause interference. So if you put it behind your TV because you don't want to see it, the TV is a great big piece of metal, and that signal will bounce off of it. So Wi-Fi is RF. It's a microwave signal. It's very low power. It's only 1 watt of power. So it can't go through things very well, and it doesn't go through metal like at all. So simply just taking your Wi-Fi router and placing it in front of the TV when it was behind the TV will make a world of difference. Because when it's behind the TV, what it's doing is it's reflecting off the back of the TV and up against the wall and mostly outside of your house and bouncing around all over the room to get to wherever you are. And technically it works in the living room okay, even if it is behind the TV, but it basically won't work anywhere else in your house.
Okay, so immediately red flags for me, because my Wi-Fi router is most definitely in an entertainment like systems TV stand thing, but it is open-faced. But like there's stuff above it and stuff below it. So does like the Wi-Fi radiate out from it, or does it go like a direction? Because it's got little antenna.
It's got little antennas.
So if those point up and it's pointing up into a TV, is that bad?
Yeah.
Well, shoot.
Well,
I learned something today.
The way the Wi-Fi radiates, it's like I don't know, have you ever seen like how microphones pick up? They have these. They almost look like a little ears that come out in like a bubble.
Oh yeah.
So if it's in there, a lot of your signal might be kind of going out, but a lot of it getting back. Like your downloads might be okay, but your uploads might be worse because this device can't get to it as well.
That would make sense.
A lot of people like the idea of having the big spidery looking routers because they got all the antennas on them. And that's just kind of basically just throwing a bunch of different radios at the problem instead of fixing the problem. And in fact, that can cause interference with the equipment that you have on the outside of your house if you have a fixed wireless system like we do at Wind River Internet, or it can interfere with other equipment in your own house. So it's not necessarily the best thing to do is to get one of the really expensive $600 routers with all these different antennas on them.
How many antennas is too many antennas?
I'd say 2 or 3 is good. And really, the 6 isn't that bad, but there's different settings, and that's the next thing we're going to cover.
Okay.
Is just the placement of it. After the placement of it is the settings on the router. So, interference. Routers can interfere with themselves and other devices and the equipment outside. there's what they call channel width, or the channel. So if you go into your router settings, you can select channels 1, 3, 6, 11. If you've got two routers that use the same channels, they will interfere with each other, and both of them will go slow. There's also what we call the bad apple scenario, where if you've got one of those antennas is being used, and you've got somebody right next to it, and they got a great connection, and then somebody in the back of the house turns on their cell phone, they got a bad connection, it'll go to the lowest common denominator in speed. So instead of having that 250 meg wireless connection, it'll drop down to an 8 megabyte connection for both people. So it just it slows everybody down.
So why does it do that? That feels like a bad idea.
Well, because
I assume it has to.
It kind of has to, or it won't work. So the idea is you have multiple antennas, and then it'll just switch people with a bad connection over to another antenna.
Oh, okay.
And
so that's why you want some antennas.
Yeah. So it's a good idea to have they're called MIMO, multi in, multi out, and it'll use multiple antennas for multiple devices, so you don't have that problem as much.
Okay.
And then the different wireless standards there are. This is where it gets really fun. They started out with B, and then they went backwards to A. So B was 2.4 gigahertz, A was 5 gigahertz.
Okay,
G,
I've heard of those.
Yeah, G did both. And did G do both, or if it was, and N finally did both. And now and then they have AC, and basically they got so confusing they switched it now to 6. So the newest Wi-Fi is called Wi-Fi 6, and that's what you'll want to look for if you're buying new computers or eventually new routers. It's just barely started coming out, so they probably won't be out until next year in most devices.
Let me get this clear. The progression here was BAN.
Yeah, GN.
Oh, GNAC 6.
Yes. That's
It's
how.
like a 2-year-old counting and doing the alphabet. I can count to 10. 2ABGN6.
And the really weird thing is most of these standards, as they got better, they got faster, but the range got worse.
That feels problematic.
Yeah, so that's that problem that I was telling you about. So basically, if you're close to it, it can be faster, but when you get further away, it goes slower, but it makes everybody slower that's also connected. And so there's I was trying to get to this. There's a thing called channel width. And by default, you'd think you'd want it as wide as possible. So it might say 80 megahertz of channel width. And that's just shooting out as much frequency as possible. The problem is it also creates the most interference as possible. And because you're only allowed that 1 watt of power, it goes the shortest distance.
Okay.
So if the default is at 80 and you keep using it at 80, it might be able to go 600 to 1,000 megabytes theoretically, which it never does. Mm-hmm. Closer to 600. But you won't be able to get signal in the back of your house. So usually you'll set up like, you'll see this where it says a 5G network or a 5 gigahertz network, and the 2.5 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz network. And the 2.4 gigahertz network doesn't go as fast, but it goes through walls and it goes further. So usually, like, we set those up for the customers to use both, and that way in the back rooms you can select the 5G network the 2.4 network, and then if you're in the living room, you select that 5 gigahertz network. That way, like, your streaming devices, like your Xbox and stuff, will work better, and your laptop if you're sitting on the couch and stuff. That generally works better. But like if you have your phones that are always moving around the house, or you might leave them on that 2 gigahertz network, and that seems to work pretty good. You can leave them named the same, and devices will automatically switch.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it just depends on how picky you are, or how you want to optimize it.
I've been baffled. So our router, we got a new router, and it has like an app with it that I was able to put on my phone, and I have not even touched a lot of the settings because I don't want to break everything. But I've been kind of baffled looking at, like, you can say, like, these devices are on 2.4 and these ones are on 5, and here's how fast they're going and how strong their connection is. And
exactly.
Do you want to put, like, parental controls on these devices or on this network? And I'm like, dear goodness, look at all this stuff I can do from my router on an app on my phone. Like, I am the god of the internet. Look at me pressing all my buttons. It's pretty cool.
And we could talk about RF frequencies and engineering all day. There's some links in here. This one that I don't know if you have it on the screen right now, but it shows just kind of an idea of like the channels that you can select. Like if you have two routers in your house, you want to put one at the top end and one at the bottom end of the selectable channels. You don't want to put them one channel right next to each other because they bleed into each other. It kind of shows that adjacent channels on this diagram. And then there's also non-Wi-Fi devices like old wireless phones, analog cameras, actual microwaves. Like if you turn on the microwave, it can slow down your internet.
That was going to be one of my questions when you said that it's a wave, and I was like, the myth is that like microwaves are going to interfere with your phone and your internet, and I thought that was a myth, but that's a real thing.
It's true. I used to have an analog camera. Whenever we turn on the microwave, the security camera would go fuzzy.
Wow. So do different microwaves, like if I have a stronger microwave, does it affect it more, or are microwaves just microwaves? We're going down a rabbit hole now. Yeah, I'm interested.
The gist is, don't put your router on top of the microwave. It's a bad place to put it.
Okay. Dang it. That was where I was going to move it to. That's my whole plan.
And there's all kinds of tools that you can use to look for optimizing what other frequencies are being used by other devices. You can get apps on your phone. There's a cool one called Wi-Fi Man from Ubiquiti. And I don't know, there's a million different ones. You just look for like Wi-Fi optimization, and inside your router they have those. They'll look for a free frequency, or less interference frequency. And then the other thing that we have, let's see, we got. I'm all over the place on this thing. Okay, mesh routers. So mesh routers or Wi-Fi extenders are where you can take a second router and put it at the edge of the good signal to extend it beyond that. So like if you have your router in the living room, you could put this one in the middle of your house, in the hallway, or one of the bedrooms in the middle of the house to extend it to the bedrooms in the back of the house. And it takes that same Wi-Fi signal and it takes it and it repeats it. And if they're smart, they'll keep their frequencies separate and different.
So we talked about range extenders at one point. What's the difference between a mesh router, like a mesh network, and an extender? Or is there a meaningful difference?
So, yeah, most of the generic extenders will usually take your Wi-Fi name, make a new name, same like, Wi-Fi number 2 or something. It picks up on the original signal, and it's kind of a dummy one that just makes a new signal and sends it out. So you manually have to adjust, or your device will manually skip between the two. A mesh router is smart. So it knows it'll be the same Wi-Fi name all throughout your house, and it'll automatically move devices around to wherever it's most efficient for the network.
Okay. So it's like you take one big router spread across a lot of different ones, but it like shares a big hive mind.
Yeah, and actually that's the way to go. Is the ideal and best way to set it up, most expensive way, of course, is to actually run Ethernet cables between these mesh routers, and they'll become what they call access points. And so that's how like hotels, schools, big offices do it. And if you have a crawl space or an attic, it's actually not that hard to do. But then you get the absolute best connection to each one of those mesh points, and like we sell them. So this is our minimum routers that we've been doing lately, and you can either lease them. I think it's $7.95 a month, just to add them onto your network. So kind of like when you had cable and you get an extra box, or you can just flat out buy them. And I can't remember exactly how much these ones are. I think they're like around $70.
Yeah, which is, I feel like, pretty standard router-ish.
Yeah, but they're nice. They're AC routers. They go way faster than our actual internet does. So that's not the problem. We don't have 6 yet. We can get 6 routers in the Wi-Fi 6. These are ACs, but
I'm still just struggling with the fact that it's 6.
Almost virtually no devices support them yet, and they're expensive. So probably next year they'll come down and we'll switch over. But right now there's not a huge advantage to going to 6, other than if you have a choice, obviously pick it. But yeah, these things are cool. They're really cool. They can do either kind. They can either just we can just add them to your account and give them to you, and you just place them wherever in your house, or you can wire them in and they go faster.
So if do they create a mesh network, or is it an extender?
Yeah. Nope, these are mesh networks.
And do they just do that like automatically if they're in range of each other? Or is there some kind of crazy configuration you have to do?
So
if we pretend I'm like 5.
Yeah. So you can go ahead and show the
mesh?
screen that I have on here right now. So this is kind of the next thing that we are going to talk about is cloud-based managed routers. So instead of worrying about all the stuff we just talked about, other than the placement, you can have somebody else manage it for you, basically. And that's what we do. If you lease these, you have the option for management, and you have the ability to download an app, and it looks like this on the screen. It'll show you how fast your internet speed is, what the access points are. So in this case, this is our office. We have our main router, and then we have a mesh router that goes on top of it. And it'll show us all the devices that are connected to it, and whether they have good signals. We can go in, we can change the Wi-Fi password ourselves real easy. We can turn on child blocks. There's a bunch of different things that you can do, and it's just like an app on your phone. And same thing with our fiber routers. They've got a system like that as well. It'll tell you if there's new devices connecting to your network, so you can know if somebody's getting on that shouldn't be. It'll tell you if you've got viruses or malware coming in through your network. It's pretty cool, and it gives us the ability just to see like if you've got devices with a bad connection within your network. So if you call up and say, my iPhone just doesn't work, and like, well, where are you trying to use it? And like, well, the back room. Well, you don't have a good signal there. Go to your living room, and then it works. Like, well, maybe you need a mesh router in the middle, or maybe we just need to move your router from the front of the room into the middle of the house. So there's options, and there's other companies too that sell managed Wi-Fi. Then it's pretty cool because then you can have multiple routers and you just manage it all. I think Google makes one, Linksys makes one, but that's kind of like the future, and it's not really so much. I don't know if you want to show these different routers. The ones with the big spidery antennas. It's more of these ones where they've got like these big towers, and
those look so futuristic.
They basically do the same thing, except for they don't let you mess up the antennas. Because almost 99% of the time, you just want the antennas to point up.
That was going to be my next question, because I think our router has 4 antennas, and I have this instinctive desire to put them like pointing different places because that's what it feels like you should do. And I was going to ask how wrong of an idea that was.
So there's a couple things. Like, people think a higher gain antenna, a bigger antenna is better. It'll give you a stronger signal. But basically what it's doing is it's taking what looks like a bubble and it's squishing it to a donut. So the bigger the antenna is, the wider out it goes, so it doesn't go up or down as well.
Okay.
So like, if you put a Wi-Fi router in the basement, it's pretty much useless. Like, I tried it at my house. I couldn't get beans for signal upstairs. But just the way they work, having the same router upstairs work downstairs. Because they don't travel up very well.
Gravity affects Wi-Fi.
Well, not really, but the way that the antenna design is, it's got a what they call a down tilt built into them, a mechanical down tilt.
Okay.
So they assume most people don't live in the sky, and so they down tilt. They go down. So
I'm going to choose to believe that gravity affects Wi-Fi because
that works for me.
A lot more fun.
So yeah, that goes back to the placement. Keep it upstairs. Don't put it downstairs. You can put a repeater downstairs, but it's not going to help you upstairs.
And just to clarify, I think you already told me this on a previous episode, but you want to put like an extender if you have one where you have strong signal, because if you put it where your signal starts getting weak, then it sends out that weak signal.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like, great, now you have crappy signal in more places. Congratulations.
And back to where I was saying, it's amazing this stuff works at all, because it's based on the fact that not all the information is getting there. So on Wi-Fi, it's pretty typical to see only like 90 to 95% of the information get to between your device and the Wi-Fi device, and that other like 5 to 50% sometimes or more gets lost, and so it has to resend it.
Just goes
Yeah,
away?
so it tries to send it, doesn't get there, it tries to, and then it resends it. So that's retransmission of packets, and that's what increases the lag or the latency. If you've got a perfect connection, it might only be 2 milliseconds, but whereas having to constantly retransmit that data because of interference or whatever the reason, then it goes up to 50 or 100. And if you go over 100, and then your voice sounds like you're a fish underwater talking through a xylophone. It just sounds weird and goofy, and you'll disconnect. Your video gets all blocky.
Which I feel like we've all experienced
Yeah,
at some point.
if you get really technical, TCP traffic is what the internet is basically. It sends data and it comes back, and it comes back perfect. That's like websites. You don't get garbled websites when the internet connection's bad. It always looks good. It just takes a long time to load. Then there's UDP traffic, which they use for voice and video conferencing. And if it doesn't get there, they just send what they can. So that's when you get weird artifacts like the voice sounding garbled, or people looking all blocky or freezing like max headroom, because it's just a different way of just transmitting and not caring about whether or not it gets there.
Huh. Wow, I'm getting like really existential about like Wi-Fi now. Like I'm trying to envision this as like a physical thing, and I'm feeling really glad that Wi-Fi is invisible, or we'd all be like tripping out constantly. Like there's so much stuff going through the air around us, and you've broken my brain a little bit.
And another thing I just want to get out there, because you see online and stuff that people are afraid of the newer Wi-Fi standards and stuff, having these high speeds. They must be dangerous because they're radioactive or something. The radiation is just high power, and Wi-Fi is like the lowest power around. You're getting more radiation from a banana or the microphone we're talking into. So I wouldn't worry about Wi-Fi.
Can I make a shirt that's like, you're getting more radiation from a banana? Because that's my new favorite quote.
Yeah, but yeah, like broadcast TV and radio, they're pumping out hundreds of watts of power, or thousands, and you're just getting less than one out of a Wi-Fi router. So I wouldn't be worried about it.
Okay.
If you're cooking stuff in a microwave, it's like within that close of a distance, and it's a couple thousand watts. So you're not cooking your brain by being, near a Wi-Fi router.
Even if it's 6.
Yeah, even if it's 6 or 5G or whatever. Yeah, just to clarify, that I don't know why that's going around, but
New stuff's scary, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, do we have questions? Now that
Okay, I have a question. We have no questions, but so are you supposed to or not supposed to stand in front of the microwave while your food is cooking?
I wouldn't.
You would?
I wouldn't.
Oh, you wouldn't? Oh.
Oops. It has shielding. That's why there's that metal mesh in there.
Yeah.
And it is really concentrated. I'd say it's fine, but I still wouldn't.
But you can stand in front of your router and be perfectly fine forever.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, they always told me not to bend down and look in through the mesh real close.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to fry your eyes. Is that a real thing, or is that just people telling little kids not to stare at the microwave?
Yeah, I think the idea is well founded, not to do it.
Okay.
The other thing, people said not to so close to the TV. Mm-hmm. The older TVs, the big tube end TVs, are actually a light gun just shooting across the screen at 1/60th of a second. So it really is just shooting a light right into your eyes. So that was probably bad for your eyes. I'm not a doctor, but.
So standing in front of your microwave, does that give you more radiation than a banana?
I don't. Probably not.
And we're good.
These are the questions the people need answered.
I don't know. We could probably ask the Google behind us.
Probably true.
Back to smart homes.
Yeah, back to smart homes.
So no questions. Nobody wants to be our friend today?
No, I think it's just a lot of information to take in. So you'll probably have some questions later. I'm assuming.
Okay. Yeah, if anybody followed that whole craziness, feel free to ask questions in the comments.
We'll get to them eventually. But if I mean,
Oh,
I
I
don't,
do have a comment from somebody. It's
Oh,
not a
okay.
question.
Sure.
So Wayne Hatch said, RF waves will pass through your body's safe levels from any 2.4 or 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
I mean, that means nothing to me, but to you.
Yeah,
you
that's
understand
a
that.
very accurate statement.
Yeah.
basically Wi-Fi signals are safe. And they're
Yeah,
not gonna hurt you.
Wi-Fi signals are safe. There's much
Thanks, Wayne.
crazier things to worry about, like getting struck by lightning or a
Or
hailstone
like
hitting you.
the sun, which is like this giant
Yeah.
radioactive ball that loves to burn you, and we're all about it. We're like, I got to go out and get me some radiation burns.
Yeah,
Like tan it up.
for real. The standing out in the sun is way more dangerous than standing by your Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, I had to go on the soapbox. My wife got skin cancer from too much sun,
Ooh.
and so she likes to preach to me. So now I'm preaching to you. The sun is a deadly laser. Watch out for that thing. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
I guess if you're not sure and you're just give us a call and we can help you out on our side. If you do get a managed router, it's not. We don't see any data. It's all generic, so we just can tell like a device has a good signal or a bad signal, and how much data it's moving. So we can tell if it's not getting all of the traffic that it's requesting. So you don't have to worry about we're not looking at what movies you watch or anything like that. We can't do that. But yeah, we can tell you. You've got the same exact wireless frequency on your router as we have on the outside. So anytime that you're using your Wi-Fi, you're actually interfering with the internet coming to your house. So
Okay.
one of us has got to change our signals here, or else it's not going to happen. It's probably got to be your own router, because otherwise you'll have to change everybody's that's connected to the tower. Yeah.
You have anything else, Terry?
Well, Wayne did add that FM will hurt you.
If you're close to it,
What's FM?
FM radio, like a radio tower.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you got to be close range. So if you're climbing the tower while it's on full power, you might not have kids afterwards.
Don't climb radio towers, guys.
At full power.
Probably don't even run around near
But
them.
it could be cheaper than sterilization, so.
That's true.
No health
Avoid the
insurance.
surgery.
Climb a tower.
Just get that radiation poisoning. It's no biggie.
But yeah, it's basically cooking you from the inside. So don't play on radio towers.
We're full of good advice today.
And the people that do go onto the towers, they actually carry a little monitor that lets them know how much radiation that you can be exposed to. And usually this is something like prolonged exposure.
Yeah.
Like if people were up there on a daily basis for years type of thing. You're allowed a certain amount of time to be on the tower, and they usually turn down the power before you work on it. So sometimes when the radio signal's not good, that may be because they're working on the tower.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not about Wi-Fi, but very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of about Wi-Fi, just a little bit,
Yeah.
because it's the same technology.
Yeah.
It's
Radio waves.
just radio waves. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering these questions and teaching me personally a bunch of stuff about my Wi-Fi. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Thanks for taking the time to watch us. And if you have things that you're curious about or things that you think would make good topics for us to discuss, we'll keep making these things as long as you keep watching them, I think. So thanks, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.